So this is where we left off in the last video, and here's a reminder of where we started. In part 1, I cleaned up the little imperfections in the walls and the floors. I got rid of the ceiling fan. I removed the floral stamp plaster on the ceilings, painted, and built furniture. And now that the hardware that I forgot to buy in the first place has arrived, let's install it. Now, I would have loved to thrift more furniture in this room, but as you can see, we're not really working with a whole lot of space on either side of the bed. Plus, the closet door still needs to open. So these cubes are perfect not only for the size, but also for the price. I opted for the ones from Ikea that are a little bit deeper, so these are only $20, but if you get the more shallow ones, they're only $15. Not to mention these also come with legs, but if you saw my video on living in a studio apartment, you know that utilizing your wall space is the best way to not only make the room look more spacious, but actually make it more functional. Now that the room is coming together, the little details are really starting to stand out, like this really dark hardware. At the end of part 1, I actually gave you guys a peek at all of the objects that I will be moving into this room, but this is my actual mood board. And as you can see, it has a lot of warmth. So we're going to update the existing knobs and hardware instead of replacing them. I'm using Rub and Buff. This is actually my first time ever using this, and I'm already in love. Like, I got this on sale for, I think, $4 something, but the original price is only like $6.99, I think. So that's a very budget-friendly way of upcycling the things that you either already own or the things that you thrift to extend their life. I was really trying not to waste tape just to mask off the doors, and also it wasn't very effective the first time around. Like, I still got paint all over the hardware. So to get into those smaller areas, I used these little applicators. And since it's all in the details, another way to upgrade or customize your room is just by adding a fun little light switch cover. This one from Anthropologie has the pop of color that I'm looking for, and although it was a bit of a splurge, I have to say that the quality is actually really good. It's way heavier than I expected it to be. But just when I was about to mount it, I realized that these switches are disgusting. So let's clean that. For the bed, I wanted some bolster pillows, but like everything else nowadays, they were like $1 million. So I'm gonna make my own, which is even better because then you can completely customize not only the print, but also the type of fabric. Like sometimes I really like a color of a pillow and then I get closer and I realize it's velvet. Not that there's anything wrong with velvet, but like it's a choice, you know? Like you gotta brush it, and I don't wanna be in that kind of committed relationship. I barely wanna vacuum a carpet. Now remember, when working with fabric, you want to remove your selvage before you cut out your pattern pieces. As a shortcut, when using cotton, you can also just snip and rip instead of cutting. And by the way, this isn't the actual fabric that I'm going to be using for the pillows. I went to fashion school, and the one thing that is ingrained in your mind is that you make a muslin first. A muslin is basically just a replica of the thing that you want to make, but literally in muslin, which is plain unbleached cotton. I picked this up at a craft store, but you can generally find this at any fabric store. But if you don't have any that are local, of course, I'll link it down below along with everything else. And then the last video I talked about like updating the way I link stuff, because outside of YouTube, I was getting multiple inquiries. So I recently updated my template, and I'm so glad I did because it has actually changed my workflow. I linked my Instagram to my bio site so that as soon as you see the thumbnail of the media that you just watched, it takes the guesswork out of knowing what to click on. So as someone who loves to scroll, I feel like as a viewer, this is the kind of accessibility that I want. So I hope that simplifies things. Not to mention you can also review your analytics. If you want to see the behind the scenes, where your audience is coming from, and change your theme if you want to. You can also customize them by altering the fonts, color themes to personalize it as much or as little as you want to. And all of this can be done from your phone. And as a longtime customer of Squarespace, of course, I recommend it. So if you want to try it too, you can get 10% off your first purchase with my code abetweene. In keeping with the farmhouse vibe, I found these egg candles after pinning brown eggs on my mood board, but I didn't want to keep them in the carton for display, so my immediate thought was to, of course, DIY it. However, that didn't really go according to plan because I don't know what this is, but I know it's not clay, at least not in the traditional sense. It feels more like slime. Fun to play with, and it might work for another type of project, but not what I was going for here at all. So we had to scrap that, but on to the next project. I was able to thrift this little bench, and it looks kind of rough. It's a little rough, but that is what I like about it. However, it is also filthy, so I'm gonna use some Castile soap to clean it up. First, to pick up any debris and spider webs, I use tape. I found a ton of frames at Goodwill and spent no more than $20 on all of them. But these were also filthy, so I'm gonna clean those up as well. If you haven't seen any of my cleaning videos, I swear by vinegar as the best glass and mirror cleaner. Before adulting, you just have no idea how much money is dedicated to stuff that you do not want to spend it on. Cleaning supplies, toilet paper, paper towels. So this is my shortcut. Using household items like vinegar and citric acid and Castile soap is like 90% of what I use, and I am never going back. I don't mind imperfections as I think it gives a lot of character, but in some cases, like when it's just one scratch, then it becomes really noticeable because it draws your attention into that one thing. So I'm using the same wood and laminate markers that I used on the floor to even it out. This particular frame I liked, but I felt like the color made it look really dated and it didn't quite fit the color palette of the room. So I used the markers again to create a stripe pattern. To bring more of an antique look into the room and fill the frames, I bought digital prints on Etsy and then I had them printed on cardstock. Again, very budget friendly as these were only $2 to $3 to purchase, and then another few dollars depending, of course, how big you're going at an office supply store. And I purposely selected an oil painting because they have the appearance of like grain and canvas, but the images still look very flat. And part of that is because of the paper choice, but I wasn't spending extra for linen. Plus, I already anticipated wanting to add in a little razzle dazzle. So I'm doing that hack where you use Mod Podge to make it look like it's actually been painted. Originally, I was going to go for satin, but decided to go for glossy, and that was a good call because this turned out amazing. Highly recommend. Another bonus too is that in addition to the texture, it also adds depth and contrast. So whereas the image looked really ashy before, now the colors look really rich and vibrant. And in case you were thinking it, yes, the texture still translates when it's behind glass. When I go to Target, I always check out the bedding by Opal House just to see what they have because they do, in my opinion, some of the best prints. And I was really excited because I saw that they partnered with Jungalow. They're a retailer that I used to browse online all the time because they have, again, really interesting prints. But they recently closed their e-commerce where I had a chance to buy the things that were on my wish list. So this is what I picked up, and I am so obsessed with the patterns that I've curated for this bedding. Like, it just makes me so happy. I'm also doing that thing that hotels do where they don't use duvet covers, and also I don't have a duvet or a comforter or whatever it's supposed to be called. Why is there more than one word? Instead, I'm using the quilt that was already here and then I'm just layering that with a flat sheet. Instead of DIYing the egg tray, I just picked up this one for less than $15 and I got an egg cup to burn my candles on. Lastly, I'm going to add this wood crate that I thrifted to disguise and store the remote for the ceiling fan and this book from one of my favorite architects. Unfortunately, I'm still waiting for the curtains, which are back ordered, so let's call this a semi-reveal of at least this side of the room.